so much, things that I definitely didn't know before, and I'm sure you did too. Joined here with me, we have Jennifer, we have Valentina, and we have Emily. And I'm going to allow them to introduce themselves. This is the PR 101 panel, so of course we have these beautiful women that are in the PR space, and they'll be speaking to you, about their businesses, their clientele, the kinds of people they've worked with, and so on. So who would like to go first?
My name's Jen. I own Moda PR. We started our business during the first lockdown after I decided I was going to quit my job during a drunken night in Vegas. I hated where I was working. I was miserable. Nobody respected PR. Nobody appreciated what we did. So I thought, after years of being in education and working for some wild people and then going in and out of the industry, I thought, well, I could just give it a go and do it myself. So quit my job and handed my notice in on Tuesday, started the business on the Thursday with one client. And now, fast forward like a year, we have an office in Chester. We just opened our office in London yesterday. We work with everyone from beauty clients to the Dream Boys. So we have a wide range of clients and yeah, just growing.
Thank you. Jennifer's being modest. There's much more. She's going to go in later. And then next to me, I have Valentina.
Hi, my name is Valentina Cangiano. I'm the co-founder and chief executive officer of Style Lab. It's a brand management and communication firm created in London in 2013. We have 3 offices, one in Monaco, one in Dubai. We are not a PR agency as a traditional model. That's why we define ourselves brand management. We work with different divisions from automotive, luxury mobility, yachting, through fashion, and a lot of focus on female entrepreneurs who are starting up also their own brand. Yeah. Some of our clients are Bentley Motors, Riva Yachts in the luxury industries, and on the fashion side, we have several brands from Said Kobeshi, Bridal Couturier, and one of our latest addition is Alter Design, which I'm wearing today as well, is created and founded by Pauline Ducret, and is 100% sustainable and non-binary brand. And we have just branched out in UK with the brand. We don't do only PR. One of our strongest services, retail mapping and development. It's part of our background. So we incorporate the different services for startup brand. They are less than 5 years in the market, and we offer an all brand audit and positioning. So we act more as a consultant rather than straight PR. Yeah. PR for us is just the final output in order to create a market awareness and presence into the market. And my sister could not be here, but she's the other half. I'm more the creative side. She's more the commercial into it. But thank you very much for inviting me.
Thank you. And Emily?
My name's Emily Austin. I founded a PR agency called Emerge in 2012, so a while ago now, when I was 22. We are a consumer lifestyle PR agency, so we work with a whole series of consumer brands like Ray-Ban, Nickelodeon, Equinox, fitness and athleisure like P Nation, fashion rental like Her, interior decorating like Lick, lots of startups and scale-ups. We're an all-female team. There's 22 of us now, which is exciting. And we're based in Soho. We also have a pay-as-you-go PR agency called Flex, which I know we'll talk later about how PR's evolved, so might talk a bit more about that then. We have a podcast as well, so we interview interesting founders and CEOs, so people like Tamor, who founded Papier, the stationery brand, Ben, who founded Seedlip, sort of young, exciting businesses. And I'm also the strategic advisor for the UN Women, so I work with them on a whole series of really challenging topics, everything from female genital mutilation and domestic violence through to more recently safe spaces for women. So specifically with the disappearance of Sarah Everard in March, and then more recently with Ellie Golding and Emily Evis, who runs Glastonbury for safe spaces for women at festivals. So lots of female founders, lots of kind of female-oriented work. We do work with men. We work with some brilliant men, but yeah, I think, you know, women's consumer brands probably have attracted more female staff over the years.
Lovely, thank you very much. And I think what I'd like us to speak about first is, how has PR changed? I won't say just over the last 19 months. I'd say over the past few years. How has it developed, especially for each of yourselves? You've been in PR for quite some time. So what does it look like today as opposed to maybe a few years ago? And what are some of the key developments?
Do you want me to start? God, so I started in this industry probably, I'm quite old, to be honest, in terms of PR. I am, don't look at that, I am. So I started in the years of like Katie Price and Peter Andre. I worked with them, and like that was, when you look back that long, you think of like what PR was, and it was traditional, ringing editors, getting stuff in papers. That was classed as PR. Whereas now, Ash, my incredible woman, left hand, right hand woman, like we always have this saying, it is PR, not ER. But I feel like 9 times out of 10, during a daily basis, it is ER for everything. Like, you are not just press, you are not just, you know, 9 to 5, Monday to Friday, call the office phone. We don't have an office phone. We have our mobiles, we have WhatsApp, we have DM, we have, you know, we're not just putting something in a newspaper and we've got our job done. We are social consultants, we are brand consultants, we are, you know, when the pandemic hit was when we started our business. That's when we really just realized that PR is not just putting something in a paper. It's actually, how the hell are we going to help these brands that we've got? Because you realize in the space of 12 to 18 months, anything can happen. And during the space of, since we've launched to some of the brands that we work with now, like the development of them has been insane. And it's been, but we've had to change. You know, we've had like live entertainment clients who have opened, then they've shut, and then you know, what do you do with them? And then you have beauty clients who, you know, for them, they've had salons that have closed, but how do you keep them alive? How do you do this? So you have to just change. And I hate the word pivot because it's so cliche, but you have to just think on your feet, and you have to like, you become more than a PR agent. And I think a lot of people, when you say you work in PR, you think you just put stuff in press, and like, you're not. Like, we're friends to our clients, and we are family. And I think that's I think over the last 12 to 18 months, if that's what's kept you afloat as an agency, I think you've done very, very well.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think I want to connect with what you said, and it's very true. And I've realized this throughout all these years as well. And before Style Lab, we were running a concept boutique in London, which was voted 2010 Britain's best boutique by Vogue. And that's where we started our own PR. And I've seen, especially relating to fashion, how you are always in the need to explain that PR is not just purely the press office reactive job, but it becomes much more. And that's also why we wanted to integrate service that becomes more of a brand strategist. And you are day to day, as you said, with the clients, which become your friends. You are, let's say, you are not the PA, but you are in somehow, you become that port of call that they want to hear from, and they ask advice that goes beyond your scope of contract, but you give it to them because that's how then you create and you bond with them. I think also PR for me is to do a lot with your empathic feeling that you create with the people that you talk with, and also is generating that emotional connection, which will help you win also a brand or a client or a personality over another agencies. However, I also think that PR, and as we are many in London, we also define ourselves from who we represent. Before, there was not much. I mean, I'll be honest, I've been here since 2004, and I've seen a lot of competition going around. You know, you always care, okay, should I connect with the other PR agencies for their clients? No, because then they can take my contact. No, I think that this has to change. There is a way that we need to collaborate, and moreover, pleased to have women that they do
Yeah.
the same,
Yeah.
because I think within WeOne we are less competitors in a way. We sort of need to create a community, because I think that that's the beauty of partnerships. So it's not that you have, you represent a PR agency, but your scope might be different from mine, but we might find the clients that I represent that might connect with yours, and that's generates a beautiful outcome.
Yes.
It can be generate a beautiful project, a beautiful outcome communication. So I think PR needs to shift more also on these collaborative
Absolutely.
talks, and also shift more into, allow me the term, commercial output. And that's why we also combine those two services, because again, PR is not about selling a press release. It's really about creating an experience that will also attract a customer base and an audience eventually for the brand.
Absolutely. And Emily?
Can I answer in two parts?
Yes, you can.
So the first is sort of how PR has evolved probably since I started, which was nearly a decade ago. It was still quite an old school PR vibe back then, which meant that you had to probably like partying, you probably had to like taking drugs. If you were blonde, it helped. I didn't do any of that, so I was rubbish. But that's why I set up my own business, because I didn't really fit into the stereotypical PR image that I saw. I weighed over 100 kilos. I didn't like drugs. I didn't really want to party as such, but I thought I had a value to add in an industry that I thought was really interesting. And 2012, if you cast your minds back, is also the year that Instagram launched, Twitter launched. It was a huge moment for agencies to have to rethink the way that they communicated.
Yeah.
And communication evolved at that time specifically from being in a newspaper or being on the radio or paying loads of money to a celebrity. You didn't have reality TV shows. You couldn't tweet someone. You couldn't bump into someone who sort of looked and sounded like you, who was on television, and then communicate and connect with them. And so the rise of the kind of reality TV and the accessibility through social media really changed the way that brands were able to communicate with their audience. And it also allowed for a lot of brands to start, because a lot of businesses like Spectrum, the makeup brushes, or Glossier, they're kind of Instagram brands that have really used if you obviously pay for advertising, but what is a kind of free marketing tool. So the evolution of PR really has gone from, the ab fab image, which is this like fabulous champagne quaffing person who doesn't actually really do any work. And I think it's become a lot more, respected in the journeys of businesses. I think brands have evolved the way in which they interact with PR. It's always been, my conversations with brands would deduce that most people hate PR. It's sort of like the base for starting a conversation with a brand, because they've been overpromised and underdelivered. They've paid too much. They're pissed off. They don't understand it. It's metricless. It's fluffy. And it's the easiest thing to blame, and it's the easiest thing to cut. So it always gets a bad rep. And as an agency, you're an outside source. So it's very difficult to feel integrated into a business when you don't interact with the people other than like a weekly call, for example. So I think what we've seen and what we've deliberately tried to do as a business is position ourselves to be more relevant for the life cycle of the business. So we do a lot of financial PR, we do a lot of fundraisers, we work with startups and scale up. So I work with a lot of private equity and venture capitalists, did a course at Oxford in venture and finance to be able to speak a little bit more the terminology around that. Similarly, understanding fundraisers, IPOs, and then most of our brands are founder oriented, and the founder's privilege is that they can be annoying all the time and you have to be nice to them. So they are an individual under enormous pressure starting a business, and you are there to help them, and their image is everything, because one of their biggest investments is probably PR, and the way that they're looked at and seen usually determines in their category who wins. So to give you a good example with the fashion rental brand, which is a kind of contemporary example, there will only be one large investment into fashion rental. That fashion rental company will then buy all the others. So they're not going to be 10 investments of 15 million into fashion rentals. So there's one winner, which means that actually the advancements of that business using language around the first, the biggest, the fastest growing, the sexiest is really integral. So I think that's evolved more short term with COVID. I mean, people expect more results for less money, which is probably happening in lots of different industries. I think that in my experience, we had a really even split with impact from COVID. All of our gyms closed, Urban Massage, Secret Spa, any app that had to go to your home, they were like, hi, we're obviously not paying you ever again. And then, you know, our D2C businesses, jewelry, Misoma, all that kind of stuff, really up, and interiors, etc. So a really even split. I think there's a nervousness around investing in PR now. I think that everyone's a bit more nervous about where they allocate spend. We've just started seeing, probably since June, budgets actually come back.
Right.
But the breadth of what PRs are expected to do now, to your point, Jen, has grown and evolved in the sense that the verticals through which we download media are now broader than a magazine. So we're looking at audio, we're looking at podcasting, particularly radio, events, panel opportunities, awards. You know, there's so much more. There are so many more opportunities through which people can communicate their message, that as a PR, you have to be across all those things.
Yes.
And what you get constantly from founders is screenshots of a magazine that their competitors in, saying, hi, sorry, why are we not in this?
Why
and
are we
you're
not
like,
in Vogue
okay,
again?
well, it's
Sorry.
Sunday, so perfect. So yeah, so I think there's like the trends would be probably an evolution in the ways in which we communicate, and then a breadth of the platforms through which we do that.
Thank you. That was very insightful. Thank you, Emily. And what I'd like to know is, and I think you slightly touched on it a bit with how PR was viewed before and how it's still kind of viewed now. Do you think that people now think they can do their own PR?
Do you want me to?
I don't know.
I mean, I have quite strong opinions about this. I think everyone thinks.
I have a strong-
I'm happy to start.
Just start.
Everyone thinks they
I'll finish. Go on.
Everyone thinks they can do their own PR in the same way everyone thinks they can cut their own hair. It's not a thing. So my position on this is like, PR is a full-time job. It is about, you know, it might not be the hardest job in the world, and I say that as like someone who is in danger of completely rubbishing my own industry, but it is not the hardest job in the world, but it is a full-time job, and therefore, you know, the nature of multitasking is mythical in the sense that if you're doing two things, you physically can't give both 100%.
Right.
So if you're running a business, people like PR because it's sexy, because everyone wants to post that they're in a magazine, and they like talking to a journalist because the footer saying they work at Grazia is exciting. The reality is that when you run a business, you have to isolate where you add the most value, and if tasks can be outsourced and delegated, they should be, because if you're doing someone else's job, no one's doing yours.
Yeah.
So I think right at the beginning, you do everything like I did when I started my business. Then eventually you are capable of hiring people who help you, and that's brilliant, and you don't have to do everything. I think that you can have brilliant relationships with journalists. I think you can be really savvy if you're running a business about PR. You can follow the right journalists on social, you can interact with them, you can put yourself in the right place. But the actual rhythm of consistent attrition of PR, the storytelling, the bigger features, the understanding the landscape, you need to be really on it in terms of understanding all that. And, you know, we get it all the time. We get clients being like, oh, hey guys, I've actually just spoken to someone else, so don't worry about it. And you're like, just copy us in because we're not, it's fine. And then eventually, and then you get an email the next week being like, hi, we got a really bad article now, please can you explain yourselves? And you're like, I feel like I'm being emotionally blackmailed. You know, there's a like attraction to it because it's sexy, and you just, you know, you want to work with your clients to sort of engage them with it. I think as a really small business, you can get a couple of pieces of PR. I don't think that's unreasonable. You can create relationships with journalists. You might be able to send them something, you know, etc. But getting a few bits of publicity is different to constructing and implementing a communications plan that allows your business to evolve and grow. And I think tagging in a freelancer or an agency, whatever your budget allows, both for time, resource, and also for just kind of purity of message in terms of focus, is the right thing to do.
Thank you.
What do you guys think?
Yeah.
I think I'm in line with your message, and I think that I realize this with the clients that we represent, because although they have the in-house PR or coordinator, at the end of the day, they need a structure, an agency that at the same time is based in 3 countries and maximize the output of the communication. And it's not just, as you said, a PR work on it's a work of also cultivating these relations with media, which you bring with you for ages, basically. And brands that thinks that is easy to get a feature or in a leading titles, and why you don't get it, they don't understand that behind you have probably been working for the last 3 months with that journalist to be able to create the right story. At the end of the day, you have to be the one who help them creating the right storytelling, emphasize that. I've learned this a bit because I'm a former journalist. Then I decided to go on the other side, but you actually love to do that.
Yes.
And that's what you need. And that's where the clients at the end of the day sees it's the passion, it's the love that you have for really creating the right storytelling. And even if you are not doing 10 product placements amounts, but you do a very, very high qualitative feature, then it brings the positioning of the brand. And that's where also relating what you were talking about, fundraising, equity, we've just launched a brand incubator lab, an investment lab, where we actually invest in the brands that we represent. So that's where actually they understand even more that there is an investment into PR and this is important, but goes through more the communication strategy. And that's where you actually can see the result and also help them understanding that, yes, PR is an investment, but you have your return if you follow a certain strategy. So for me, it's essential to have PR, which can be an agency or a group of individuals, and all. I'm open to all the software that they are bombarding me by email, maybe the same as you, where they say, can we put your clients? The example that I have with some clients is that behind there are personalities as well. And you have to decline those, but they sort of want to, it's not that they want to cut you out, but they obviously encourage the talent or the brands to say, okay, you don't need a PR agency or brand communication agency with solid background, with people that they have basically created the business. You have us a software where you can put your picture, you can put your credential, and then you can connect. So this is something that could be the future, but I do not think, and now I've seen with COVID, back to the origin in a way, there is a need of more phygital connection. Is not all about the digital anymore. And I've seen this, and we see this today because we are here face to face. And that's something that you want to live now in the live moment.
Exactly. And Jay?
I'm sick to the back teeth of clients telling me they can do their own PR, to be honest. We had, for a case study, we've had 2 clients in the past, probably like 3 months who, I'd say probably 2 last week that was like, oh, you need to scale down it. Okay. And within 2 weeks, we had one come straight back to us. We were like, we can't do it. I was like, well, I know you can't. I know you can't, but you just have to let them go, do their thing, realize that actually it is a skill, and it's more than time consuming. Like, I don't work on timesheets. I don't work on per hour. I don't work on Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. I work on the fact that I am your PR representative and I will do everything I possibly can. And our results speak for themselves. And I don't do timesheets. I don't do anything like that because we've been going now nearly a year and we've never been asked to justify any kind of hours that we've done because we've over-delivered in terms of everything. Yeah. So I am quite modest. I don't like talk a lot about results and things, but they do speak for themselves. And I think that when our clients come to us, we've never done back-end ads. We've never shouted about ourselves except for the one article that we've done with you, which was lovely. But we've never done any of that. Everything has come to us from word of mouth and recommendations from people saying, go to them, they're great. And just today we had an incredible meeting, which hopefully we'll be able to talk about soon. But that's the reason why we've gone from back in my little desk to opening the London office yesterday in 12 months. Like we're just different in that sense, and it's not might not be everyone's cup of tea, might not be everyone's model. We're still learning as well in terms of, I've not gone to business school. I don't do my God, I didn't even know how to do an invoice really before I started my business. But whatever we're doing works.
Yeah.
And I think that there's so many businesses out there that they think they can do it, and it's not being disrespectful to them, but when they actually take a step back and they think what their priority is, and then they think, well, shit, like actually, no, I do actually need something that knows what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
That's where we come back in. And it's like you said before, it's like people, they think they could do it, and they go, okay, just keep me posted, and then I'll come back to you.
Well, I mean, if I started a brand, I'd hire an agency. I wouldn't do it myself, personally. But I just also wanted to add to that when people talk about PR, they talk a lot about results. They talk about coverage specifically. And a big part, and I'm sure for you guys too, but a big part of my job is actually not just output. It's also about protecting our clients. So, for example, we had a high profile client who wanted to do a section of their fundraise to encourage women to invest in the business. And we said that that was a really dangerous thing to do when the entire board was male and all the founders are male, that you're basically asking women to invest into the company. It would be better for you guys to allocate a fund to help either train or hire C-suite members of the team so that your company better reflects the people that that your customer base, which is women. If they'd gone out with that, they would have been absolutely destroyed by the media. And now, we do exist in an environment where people are nervous about being called out. We have founders who say things that are incredibly flammable and could be very damaging to them as a business. And they're not always deliberate. Like, they are also learning too about the right language and terminology and all this kind of stuff. But part of our job is also to protect them. So I think having that distance as an external party to be able to hear the ideas and reflect on them is different to when you're internal and you're kind of drinking the Kool-Aid and everyone's excited about an idea. So I do think that if someone, I'm sure a brand could get a piece of coverage themselves, fine. But the sort of scope of what a PR person is being asked to do is also reputational. And I think that's harder to do when it's your own business.
Absolutely. Well, thank you all. Thank you,
so
Emily,
much.
Valentina,
Thank
and
you.
Jennifer.
It was a pleasure.
It was a pleasure. I learned again so much during this panel, and that's actually the end of day one. Thank you all that could be here today from the morning until now, and then of course we're back tomorrow for day two. So join us for that, and for those of you that will be seeing in person, of course I'll see you tomorrow. Thank you so much.
Thank you.